Now we're going to come up into kneeling. Here's where our blocks are going to come in. So you'll have to play with the levels of this. You might be honestly at level 1. You might be at, doubled up level 1s, or at a level 2, or you can go up to level 3. I'm going to be at level 3 here for myself. I like to have these blocks up against my wall so that I don't have to worry about me pushing them away or anything like that. And we're going to check your hip abduction here. So we want to find a nice stretch, but again, this is a single leg class, so we're going to be doing this on one leg. So for me, I know that if I can abduct up to these blocks, like I have no problem with that. So if I anchor myself in with my stick here, I can abduct my hip and get on top of those blocks without getting excessive pelvic hike. And again, I'm really exaggerating here, but without my pelvis moving a ton, keeping it isolated to my hip. So you'll have to kind of figure out that height for you. And then we're going to get into a stretch there. So you might get there and then be like, well, maybe I feel a little stretch, but not much. Here's how we're going to get into it. So you can use that stick for balance, but just to show you, right now, I'm going to exaggerate. If I hike my pelvis up on the right and drop it on the left so that my pelvis is angled like this, I'm not going to feel much of a stretch. If I try and drop that pelvis down on the right side and bring it up on the left side, so I take it from being angled like this to being angled like this, then I get into a stretch. And that is actually how you abduct your hip, but instead of abducting your femur on your pelvis, you are abducting your pelvis on your femur. So we're going to use that cue to get down into that stretch. If you can keep your toes pointed straight ahead, please do so. And then you should feel a nice stretch in the bottom of that hip there. And we're going to hang out there for a little bit, but again, you'll have to kind of be aware of what your pelvis is doing in order to keep yourself in that stretch. And you'll need to keep that pelvis anchored on that side when we do pails and rails. So we'll bank a little bit of time stretching here again. When we do our pails, I'll just talk you through it while we spend this time stretching. You're going to be pressing down with that leg, but again, making sure your pelvis doesn't hike up on you. Staying in that stretch, keeping that tissue at length the whole time. Thinking about sliding your leg down or imagining that little imaginary weigh scale underneath of your yoga block or blocks and trying to press it down into the ground. We'll increase the number on that weigh scale until we reach our greatest, safest, pain-free effort. You will hold that, really loading that underside tissue. You should feel a lot of, I can't talk again today. You should feel a lot of work being done in the groin. I sound like Elmer Fudd, if any of you ever watched Bugs Bunny. So you'll feel the work being done in the groin when you're pressing down for pails. Then we're going to reverse, and then you're going to send that work to the side hip, thinking about making your foot as light as you can on that block. That will be your rails contraction, okay? After that, we're going to move into some passive range holds. You'll have two options in terms of how you do your passive range holds, and I'll show you how we can go about it, and you can pick whichever one is honestly more fun for you, or whichever one you just prefer. So we've spent a little bit of time stretching here now. If you'd like to bank more time stretching, if this is something that's really tight for you, or this is something that takes you towards a goal that you have, whether that be to kick higher if you're in martial arts, or to get yourself into splits if you're in dance, or just splits because that's a goal for you, whatever, please hit pause, bank a little extra time here, and then hit resume when you're ready to start your pails and rails. We're going to start in with our pails now. I'm going to do a quick check and make sure I'm staying, again, anchored through that pelvis, so that pelvis is abducted on the right side or nice and low on the right side. Finding that good stretch in the groin. I can use my stick here to kind of anchor myself into the wall and help solidify myself. And I'm going to slowly think about pressing down through my foot. You're going to join me here. Let's start with 2 out of 10 or 20% driving down, loading that groin. Work your way up to 40%. Keep climbing 60%, 80% driving down, and your greatest, safest, pain-free effort. Give me the highest number that you could under that imaginary weigh scale, underneath your foot or underneath your yoga blocks, really pressing down, trying to even drag the earth towards you, but don't let that pelvis move in the process. Keep going. We're going to hold this for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now you're going to reverse, make your foot as light as you can on that block, and think about lifting your leg up, but do not let that pelvis move. Don't let it hike up. Keep that pelvis still. You're trying to close that angle on the side of your hip, squeezing that side hip tissue, and again, holding for another 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then slowly relax, but stay as you are, don't come out of it.